So just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had the honor of sitting in the presence of Harrison Butker as he gave the keynote speech at the Young Catholics Professionals Gala in Dallas for their national conference, where I was a presenter there. And his speech was so amazing. It was so fiery. The entire conference was rooted in Jose Maria Escriva, the founder of Opus Dei. And we were there to learn about how to bring faith to our work boldly, to stand in our identity as Catholics, unapologetically, and to glorify God's kingdom through our work. So you guys know that was right up my alley because that is what I am all about. And the talk that he gave was just so edifying, so beautiful in how he stands truly in his faith as a Catholic man in the NFL and does so unapologetically. He wears his brown scapular. He's openly a prayerful man, and he stands up for the value of family. So when I heard about this commencement address, I already knew where he was going to go. And boy, did he not disappoint. And how you know that he hit the nail over the head is that the news media and the mainstream media went absolutely nuts.
What this man is doing is not just a devout Catholic. This is someone who's practicing something called the traditional Latin Mass, which is divergent from the majority of Catholics. It's compared to being cult-like and extremist like some religions in the Middle East and Asia. So this is a very extreme religion. And what bothers me about that as a Christian is that when people abuse Christianity, they often not only cherry pick from the Bible, they misinterpret and lie by omission, by taking out parts that would have explained something a little better. So what I can say to him as a Christian is if you're using this to oppress a people or hold them down, you're not walking with Jesus. If you are using the religion, if you are more obsessed with the religious rituals and practices than you are with the word of Jesus, you're not walking with Jesus. And if you're using it for the judgment of others and as a weapon to beat people down, you're also not walking with Jesus. So I would really encourage him to find the best parts of faith and not diverge into extremist beliefs.
I think it's really ironic how there's so much attack on traditionalism, the traditional Latin Mass, and the Catholic Church. They see us standing up for our faith, standing up for our traditional values, and glorifying the Lord in the way that he commands us with all of our hearts, all of our minds, all of our strength as a threat. From articles that claim that Catholics are militarizing the Holy Rosary, to the Associated Press just weeks ago doing a hit piece on Catholicism and our traditional values, citing notable figures such as Bishop Barron, Father Mike Schmitz, and Jackie Angel as dangerous conservatives of the faith. Now, I don't know about you, but I would never associate those three with extremism or traditionalism off the rails. But we are a threat. The FBI is going into our churches because they're afraid that we might cause some kind of an uprising. So what kind of uprising are we doing? Praying the rosary with hundreds of people at the same time? Processions of the Blessed Virgin Mary and the Holy Host of the Most High Jesus Christ down your local street? Nothing is far from what it is that we want to do in our faith. But the problem with Butker's speech was this. He was coming out hot right out the gate because everything that I just said, he took it to 10.
Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people, it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice. He is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic. This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it. These are the sorts of things we are told in polite society to not bring up. You know, the difficult and unpleasant things. But if we are going to be men and women for this time in history, we need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition. We must always speak and act in charity, but never mistake charity for cowardice.
No, he took it to 100, and the kids were not ready for it. I mean, he could have at least put that in the middle, prepped them up a little bit, but folks watched that and had a complete meltdown. He's a huge NFL star. So I have a feeling it was people from the outside who watched this and completely melted down about what he had to say. But what he had to say has so much truth. And the thing about it is that I think that we are taking away the wrong message about what he said. One of the first things he opens up with is about the culture of death and how it is ruining so much of society. He called out President Biden for his hypocrisy of saying that he is a man rooted in his Catholic faith, all while supporting causes that go strictly against that. But I think that what a lot of people are missing in this conversation is that he is not there to attack, but to edify and to hold up a mirror to our society in a way that's shouting, hey, look, we've got to think about what we're doing. Now is the time to turn back the hands of time instead of racing towards our own destruction. But there was a deeper message for the faithful that I think that each of you needs to take away, rather than just focusing on the controversy of what he said, and controversy according to the mainstream media. Maybe even for some of you in the church who struggle with these same things that he brought a light upon. One of those things that I think is so important is his call for each and every one of us to start standing in our faith, to stop hiding. Our Western civilization loves it when people shout their truth from the rooftops. Relative truth in this society is celebrated as long as that relative truth has nothing to do with Christianity, has nothing to do with Jesus Christ, and most definitely has nothing to do with Catholicism. We are expected to hide our faith. We are expected to not make other people uncomfortable. We are expected to just blend in the background and let other people be free to be who they are. And I really think that it's time for us to rise up against that, to be boldly standing in God and not to hide who you are. You see, I've spent so much of my life hiding my faith, not letting people know how much Jesus Christ was always moving in my life. Not letting people know that I was born and raised a cradle Catholic. And not even when I was at Fordham University, a Jesuit college in which I graduated from. I don't even think half my classmates realized that they were even in a Catholic university, being that we were in the dance conservatory. In the workplace, we're not allowed to talk about our faith. We're not allowed to talk about what we believe or what we stand for. We're expected to hide that away. What he is calling each of us to do is to stand up and be proud and not be ashamed of who we are and whose we are, which is God's. And I respect that so much. That is one point he drove home when he was speaking at the Young Catholics Professionals Conference. Another thing that I really admire about his speech was how he holds our clergy to task. Our faith is countercultural. There's no way you can get around that. And so much of what we stand for is being dismantled by the world, or at least they're trying to, infiltrating our churches, infiltrating the Vatican to bring about progressive ideology to what should never be progressive, which is timeless. The church transcends time and space, and the word of God is what it is. Now, we can always have compassion towards other people. We can try to explain what we believe and be open as much as we can without malice, with charity, with compassion, with care. But we cannot move on what we believe. And our priests, our bishops, our cardinals, and even our pope are stewards of that message. They must stand strong and not back down because the world is pushing against them. And he calls them to task to do that. And every single one of us should support that message. And more importantly, one point that he drives home, and one that I want to expand on in this conversation, is the importance of family, is the importance of the vocation of marriage, is the importance of motherhood and fatherhood. I believe it was Pope John Paul II who coined the term, or just coined the idea, that strong families build strong nations, build a strong world. And everything in our society today is about dismantling that, dismantling the nuclear family, dismantling traditionalism. And as we do that more and more, we're seeing the fall of Western society as we know it. That is not a good thing for those of us who live in Western society and cultures. Talk about destabilizing the planet. You take that away, you break that structure, you're going to break everything. And there's so many people who are rushing towards this nihilism. Now, we talked about that in the last video where I broke down the debate between Trent Horn and Pearl Davis. Go ahead and make sure you check that out. But our world today and society today is holding on to this pessimistic, nihilistic idea, this lone wolf idea that we do not need each other, that it's all about the individual. I have a video that I'm working on, and I'll put that link right here once I get it done, about how this is actually the message of Satanism, the worship of the self removed from God, about the glorification and the preserving of the self without the care of others, devoid of God, devoid of Christianity, devoid of Jesus Christ. And that is what's being pushed on every single one of us. And when you come from that kind of perspective, marriage, children, family, none of that matters because it's not about building a nation. It's all about building the self. That is what he's warning against. And I'm wholeheartedly hands down on that. Thumbs up. I love it. He made a specific call in his speech to women. And this is another place where mainstream culture and society had a meltdown and called this akin to the Handmaid's Tale. Now, listen, nothing could be further from the truth. Now, I want to talk about his audience in the context of the speech. Obviously, this is a commencement address. So he's talking to young women and young men, but addressing young women about to enter the precipice of possibilities of life. And he is pleading with them to ignore what the world tells you is valuable when it comes to women because we were lied to. I was just talking to my mom about this the other day, how her generation were fighting for female equality, women's equality in the workplace. And then came along the sexual revolution, and that got co-opted into the message. Now, interestingly, having this long conversation with my mom, I learned how uncomfortable she was with that message. As a staunch Catholic woman, she was not down for all the promiscuity and the promotion of the pill and other things that just went against the faith. She did see the value of offering women an opportunity to stand in the world as they mattered in the workplace. But at the same time, my mother does not identify with the feminism that we have today, where she feels like the message of not needing men, of devaluing men, of women are always above all things, that is a poison that should never have entered the conversation. Alas, that is exactly what was fed to all of us from Generation X all the way down, to a point where we are in society that the women who are graduating, these Generation Z women, are told to put their careers and everything else above family, above motherhood, to forego it in ways that I don't even think my generation, at least, we were still getting married, some of us, having families, making the choice to either stay in the workplace or stay at home. But in today's world where marriage rates are on the steep decline and promiscuity taking front and center, gender identity and the identity of women being eroded and erased by men, the messaging for women in today's culture who are in their 20s about to start their lives is highly confusing because this goes against what you believe in your faith as a Catholic woman. So I'm 100% behind him on that. Now, here's where my pushback is, because we're not going to just do a video where we just talk about how everything is so perfect, because the world isn't perfect and what we live in has to reflect the reality of what everybody's seeing. I think there's two boats here. I think that when you listen to this message as a older person who's past the 20s, and let's say you have not gotten married yet, let's say you have not had children yet, let's say there's no prospects of that happening for you, because that's a reality for so many women today. You might hear this and it stings your heart because the church and the values that a lot of people have when it comes to vocations is that our only choices as women is marriage and family or being a mother. And if you miss that boat, it's almost as if your value is nothing. You're being talked to as though you're a failure. Sometimes the will that's in your heart to want to get married, to want to settle down, it's just not the will that God has for you. You missed the boat. And I think that these conversations are a hard pill to swallow. There are even women who are young, who are in their 20s, who do not have the luxury of going to a Catholic university like Benedictine, or they're not at Steubenville, at Franciscan. They're not at these places that are burgeoning with these young Catholics who are looking for this life. Some of you are living in places where there are no Catholic men around you who lead a life of virtue. So you feel left out of this conversation. You want marriage, you want the family, you want to stay home, but the prospects of that happening for you is not there for whatever reasons. And here's the thing. It's the same thing for men as well. I know, guys, I hear it. I know, and I understand. I stand with you on that. And I think this is where we need to start opening up the conversation a little bit more, because it becomes very myopic and very exclusive when you only put a light on the importance of motherhood and being a wife. And even for men today, more men the ages of 18 to 30 are not even dating. 66% of you are not dating. You're not in the dating market. You're feeling lonely, dejected, and without hope in society of being able to actually have a wife and a family. So many people are in that boat. And conversations like this miss that whole swath of people. He mentioned someone so important that really has taken hold of my life, like in a way that I feel so on fire about my own journey in faith and God's will for me and my own apostolate, if you'll call this stuff that I'm doing that. And this person was the theme behind the Young Catholics Professionals National Conference and the gala in which he spoke. And that was Saint Jose Maria Escriva, the founder of Opus Dei. I have had the pleasure over the last few weeks since coming back from the conference where I was exposed to his work in such a great way and had my heart set on fire for really learning and knowing and living what it means to sanctify my work. I already was on the pathway of having that seed within me planted, that I've opened God to my professional life to say, God, sit in this driver's seat and bring your people to me. Let me give them the message that you want them to hear. Put it on my heart and I will deliver it. And that's why you are here to this day. It's not because of me. It is because of him. And he brought you here. So what I would expand this conversation of what Harrison already started, and he mentioned it very briefly in his speech, which I love, where he mentioned about Saint Jose Maria Escriva. And that is that no matter what your station in life is, whether you are single, whether you are married, a mother or father, if you're a religious order, your religious life, that we have a duty to find our fulfillment in the Lord first and foremost, and to evangelize and spread his message to all of his people, and how we can sanctify our work and sanctify what we do, no matter where we are in our station of life, by way of bringing Christ into the middle of that. Now, why is this important? Because the truth is, so many of you will not find husbands. So many of you will not be mothers. That's just the truth. Those are the statistics. That is a culture in which we live. So many of you will not be husbands. So many of you will not be fathers. So the tendency is to feel that you are worthless because so many people are saying that this is the only true vocation for men and women. You have conversations that say that a woman who happens to be married, who happens to be blessed to be a mother, who works outside of the home, is disobedient to her husband and disobedient to God because the only place for her is in the home. And I think that is such a detrimental message as well, because that gets brought into this conversation too. Some people are not afforded that opportunity. The economy in which we're living today does not make that a reality for every Catholic family, every Catholic marriage. And that's where we can take a look to see how can we sanctify what we do, even if we have to work outside of the home, even if you'll never be a mother, a wife, a husband, a father. How do you sanctify everything that you do through Jesus Christ? So that way you are fully submitted to him always and forever. Now, if you are fortunate enough to be a woman who's married to a beautiful Catholic man in his faith and leading you forward is something that you know you have committed to, therefore you submit to, and he asks you to stop working, he can take care of the kids, he can take care of the family, he can take care of the expenses. By all means, maybe you should have that talk with him about how to make that happen realistically. I think what happens with so many women is that you have a call to step away from your profession, to focus on your family, to focus on your children. And that is natural and that is okay. Do not let the world tell you that you are a failure if you do that. You are encouraged and told by our society to never marry, to don't have children, to don't do any of those things. Because if you do, you're not a boss babe, you're a failure. And I think you should stand up against that if that's something that you want. But also know that finding the sanctity of God in everything that you do is also a part of your Christian life. It is what you are called to. And for women who have to work or are in the workplace, women who may be wives or mothers in a situation where you have to, you cannot be someone, even if both your husband and you would love that financially, you just can't, so you have to work. That doesn't make you any less of a Catholic woman, a Christian woman. How can you bring your qualities as a woman to the job that you have to do? How can you show up in your faith in a way that shines Christ as a light and a beacon to everyone at all times? That is how you should look at your situation. And God bless you if you're able to step away to be in the home and focus all of your energies on that. What he had to say was absolutely perfect. And it's up to those of us to take these messages and to open it up and to add new perspectives to it that still support the general ideal. At the end of the day, I'm going to tell you all, it's going to be a rough ride out there. The church is under attack from the outside. The church is under the attack from the inside. And it's up to each one of us to stand up and to protect Holy Mother Church, the Catholic Church, the rock upon which Christ built his church and his kingdom for the entire world.